we're just getting started, folks. We got plenty more, including our next panel here, the second of the day, which is going to be on innovating and leveraging your brand in the new normal. You notice a theme throughout the day, the new normal, and how things, especially in this crazy COVID year, have had to transition and change from the way we do even the simplest things every day. And this is going to be powered by our friends at Cluefield. And our moderator for the day, or for this panel, is the strategy director at Global Sports Venture Studio. He's not here to kid around. Fielding Kid Jameson is with us. And Fielding, good morning, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Absolutely. We're gonna go ahead and introduce your panelists as well. Joining Fielding on this virtual stage is the Innovation Strategy Specialist at UEFA, Jean-Baptiste Alliot.
Hi there. How you doing, guys? All good?
Good to see you. Yes, Jean-Baptiste. Thank you for joining us.
I love the accents.
There's a lot of accents I'm learning today, a lot of folks from around the world. So if I do mess up any names, I do apologize in advance, but thank you for being with us. We have a couple more panelists, though, with us, the head of product at Bundesliga DFL. It is Lennart Wernicke.
Hi there. How you doing?
Thanks, Lennart. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have the co-founder and COO at Slate, representing House Stark, for all you Game of Thrones fans. And Eric Stark is with us.
Hey, thanks for that intro. My dad is named Tony Stark.
Tony Stark. Well, great to have you with us, Eric. And one more to join this really jam-packed panel. And he's more than just a fly on the wall for the Sports Tech Summit. Give it up for the CEO at Greenfly, Daniel Kirschner.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. Great to see everyone.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you. And Fielding, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks, everybody, for joining. Really excited to have this conversation today. Just to start off, I am Fielding Jameson. I work for the Global Sports Venture Studio, which is a collaboration between sports organizations, corporate partners, and the sports innovation ecosystem, ultimately with the goal of bringing everybody together to help shape the future of sport. And so I'm really excited to dive into a discussion today about how these organizations and brands are innovating and leveraging their brand and kind of this new normal that we find ourselves in. And I can't believe the year is almost over, but as we look back at 2020, I think we can all agree this has certainly been a year of disruption. And I think when, we work in innovation, and so we actually think that disruption can have an upside, right? It can actually push companies to make changes, finally implement a new product or service or technology that can actually become that agent of growth for companies. And I know that I think that's what we're going to talk a little bit about here today, is how you all are actually working together, some of you, in terms of how to actually, engage now with your fans in this kind of new normal. But before we dive in, I'm going to actually have our panelists quickly introduce themselves. We're pressed for time, guys, so just keep it brief. I promise I'll get to all the important stuff that you guys are doing. But if you could just tell us about, who you are, your role for the two startups on the call, maybe that quick 15-second pitch that I'm sure you've all perfected, give people an idea of who you guys are. So JB, I'll start with you.
Cool. All right, I'll try to keep up with the 15 seconds. Leading the UEFA Innovation Hub, more or less a vehicle to try to future-proof UEFA. Internal value creation focus to have the organization remaining agile and flexible, but also external value creation, especially with startups like the two we have on the panel today. So happy to be here and discussing further with you guys.
Thank you. Lennart?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm overseeing the digital production at the DFL here in Frankfurt, and overseeing all the products we are providing to our international media partners. Now calling in from, unfortunately, my home office, so fingers crossed that the connection will stay. Yeah, thank you.
Great. And Eric?
So if I sound, founder in some work on that helps stories on powering their platforms like now.
Eric, I'm so sorry. We're having some trouble with your try to Great. Sorry about that, everybody. Daniel, let's go to you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Daniel Kirschner, CEO, co-founder of Greenfly, along with Sean Green. We're a content exchange and collaboration platform, and we're sort of the leading tool for content exchange and collaboration across sports leagues and media companies, et cetera, including, of course, UEFA and Bundesliga. So great to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daniel. All right, let's dive in and hope that Eric can join us back in a minute here. Leonard, I'm actually going to go to you. Oh, actually, Eric, I think let's test how. Can we hear you?
Testing. Does it sound better?
Oh, so much better.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Just a good old refresh, and that fixes the issue. So I'll quickly do my intro. Co-founder and COO of Slate. We help brands tell better brand stories on social media by empowering their content creation. And I used to work at the NFL before co-founding Slate, so backgrounds in sports and digital and social.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here. Leonard, I'm actually going to go to you with this first question. You know, many industries have suffered during this pandemic. It's been especially difficult, I think, for sports. And I think that not just because we all work in it, but because sports touches so many people. It has the athletes, the organization, the fans, the sponsors, the media, all of these different people who've been affected in this, one sector. Play was suspended. Fans weren't allowed in stadiums for a long time. But, Bundesliga was the first league to restart back in May. And so I wanted to ask you, how did you guys manage this situation at the DFL? How were you kind of able to bring play back? And what was the most difficult thing to deal with when you did that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it makes sense of giving a little bit more background to this question. So back in March, when the coronavirus spread all around Europe, we had a special situation here in Germany that the corona pandemic didn't hit us so hard in the first place. Second, we had a robust health system, and which capacities were equipped to give or deliver a strong first response. And third, definitely, we are grateful how our federal government navigate through this crisis. So, and if one of these states or pillars weren't there, so we had to have thought about the actual restart of the game. But coming from this situation, we started to plan the restart with all facets. And as our CEO stated, often we didn't want a special role for sports or football in total, but because the most important part was definitely public health. But as DFL and as our main business, we had to map out how we can, as a league, can ensure the viability to our business. So after approaching the federal government and get their sign off with our hygiene concept, we had to take it then to the local authorities, which had the final say in this process. And in this kind of two-step process where we, as a league, discussed with the federal government, and we then had to take it to the local authorities with the clubs, with our medical task force, and to discuss it and very close collaborate with all authorities and the clubs. And asking for the most difficult issue in all these phases, I think, from initiation over implementation and monitoring all these hygiene concepts and all this stuff. So the most difficult thing was that we hadn't kind of benchmarked for all the situations. So everything we were testing was new for all of us, and definitely then the unpredictability. So the situation changed from day to day, though. That was definitely the most difficult issue during this time.
Sure, just the unknown has been, I think, very difficult for everybody. Daniel, I want to go to you. You know, how has COVID-19 changed the way that you are working with sports organizations? You know, a lot of your platform is really around capturing content almost on the fly, if you will, or during these games, and bringing that into the organization. So how did you guys, you know, pivot or shift how you worked with the sports organizations?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, what everybody always says is everybody always talks about the acceleration of existing trends, and that was certainly true here. I mean, we are a remote collaboration platform, and, you know, cloud-based. And so during this period of disruption, the reliance upon it has been just that much more acute. It's very difficult for people to work together in the same space. They need to be able to exchange content. We saw a lot more people requesting and gathering content, you know, from athletes in their homes and things like that, which is something you can do in the platform. So not just pushing content out around events and capturing content around events, but really communicating and capturing content with people wherever they are. So we saw an incredible reliance upon that during the period of disruption. And then as gameplay resumed, and, you know, we talked about Bundesliga really, you know, leading the way there. What we saw is they resumed with, you know, pared down staffs and less access to the field, fewer people available to capture content, and just a lot more need to be able to effectively share the resources that were available. So people capturing content, you know, both teams need to be able to get it immediately. The league needs to be able to get it. You can have lots of different people on the field. And so, you know, what we really saw was just an increased reliance on our platform and necessity around it. So it wasn't so much that it shifted how we worked, it just really intensified it.
That makes sense. And you know, speaking of kind of intense and intensified, JB, obviously UEFA had its own set of challenges during this time, trying to kind of wrap up that 2019 to 2020 season, and then already now starting into the 2020 to 2021. I know you made a lot of changes in place, and, you know, the Final Eight in Lisbon and all, and to kind of get that 2019 to 2020 season wrapped. I'm actually just curious, in terms of the changes that you guys put in place to get that completed in a safe environment for everybody, what's carrying over into this next season, into the kind of, as you look to 2020 and 2021, what are some of the things that you put in place that you guys are going to kind of continue?
Yeah, so I think on our side, I mean, we were very much happy to have Bundesliga actually being a leader back in March, April. We were in close touch with them as well. At this time, for us, the necessity at the time was to free up the calendar for all the leagues to actually finish, because it was about assessing the impact of the crisis, and the financial impact was heavy, actually. So for us, it was a bit postponing, putting together our competitions. And the thing is the return to play initiative. So actually, we had to start from a white page. So having health and safety measures at the core of what we do. Definitely the format is different. I don't think you will see a main change right now for 2021 or 21-22 actually, but clearly we've had a massive impact on our operations. That's clearly one of the impact of COVID in terms of how we can deliver the matches. And just like Daniel was saying, is like we have less staff. It's how you do it remotely. And so today, in a time where everybody is asking for more and more content, where you are fighting for fans' attention and actually consumer attention and experience new experiences, I think it was a bit of a challenge now to keep delivering the matches and making sure we have enough content when there was no matches, and now that there are matches, that you can actually have all the content available and actually distribute it to the different partners. So clearly it was a challenging time, but I think understanding the impact, being able as an ecosystem, I would say, to answer to it and to put together new operation guideline, the return to play initiatives. I think that was the massive challenge. And like you said, I think fielding for us, at UEFA, we feel a bit stretched, to be honest, because we have the club competitions, like you mentioned, but we have also the international calendars. So since this summer, it's back to back with the Nations League, the European qualifiers. So that's a main thing for us to keep delivering the matches.
Absolutely. I think, especially at the end of the year, we're all probably feeling a little bit stretched here. So I just want to kind of switch a little bit. We talked a little bit about how, COVID was affecting your organizations and some of the things you put in place there in terms of just actually getting kind of play back. But let's talk about, JB, to your point about this idea of like how much digital content that people are consuming at home. I read a stat earlier this year from the Wall Street Journal that people are actually consuming upwards of 16 hours a day digital media, and that's up 4 hours from the previous year. And so that does include some multitasking, but still kind of a crazy stat, right? People are really leaning into these digital platforms. So Eric, I want to talk to you. I know you guys are working with UEFA on some of this. How are you working with your brands to help kind of strengthen their digital presence in this time where there is a lot of content being thrown at them? Being thrown at fans, but it's honestly crucial for these organizations to keep those touch points. And one of the main ways they're doing that is through social media. So I'd love to just hear your thoughts on how you're helping empower brands do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a few ways for us. The first, you kind of mentioned there's so much noise out there. There's so much content being consumed across social. Every day from your friends, all the brands you follow, the sports teams. Our goal is to help our brands differentiate and define their brand on social media. So really, we want to help them kind of increase their output and make sure it's differentiated. So when you land on a UEFA post or a UEFA story tile, that's UEFA, and you understand kind of what the brand is representing there. And that has implications, business implications beyond just kind of looking cool. Like, this is the new billboard, the new commercial, the new way to engage your audience and define your brand in those places. So we're working with them in that way, in terms of kind of creative and making sure they could have those defined looks on platforms that are especially visual, like TikTok and Instagram stories. And also just helping empower those content creators that now, Daniel mentioned it, there's more pressure on the social media teams than ever before, because these touch points are more important to the business than ever before, but they have less resources than they did pre-COVID. They're not going to get to hire that extra social coordinator or, have that part-time helper with them. So we're really helping them do their jobs more efficiently, which is increasing their content output and letting them be more creative, with less.
That's fantastic. JB, I just want to bring you into that conversation. How are you guys working with Slate and other tools, as well as you look to engage your fans from more of a digital presence, considering you don't have that, face to face?
Yeah. I think the main thing here is how you can still deliver value for the sponsors, and how you can work with Slate or even Greenfly in terms of content creation and new distribution. So here the ideas of driving brand consistency around different accounts or creators that we have, it's very important today. And I think for sponsors that are looking for new ways to activate, because if there are sponsors, it's because they were looking for these kind of things, and because it's no longer happening or not to the same scale. I think that's important for us, that we can make sure that we are able to execute in this new environment. And actually, Slate is a great tool for that. And just like Eric was saying, I think for most of the organization, I think it's like having another person in the staff, because we have so many restrictions on sites that to make sure we can capture and collect and then distribute to everyone. That's very key today. And so, because of all the restrictions we're facing, it's how this tool can enable us to actually have more people on sites without having more people, actually. So it's how you can deploy your capacity. And so I think Slate to remain on brand, but also what Greenfly is doing with the DFL in terms of like building all the behind the scenes and all the content to be distributed to the sponsors or even the broadcast partners, that's that's here today, and that's where we're looking at as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Leonard. I want to go to you about that relationship with Greenfly. You know, how has that really empowered your organization to engage with your fans and to not only engage with your fans, but also, to JB's point, to also fulfill sponsorships and any other kind of digital activations that have become crucial during this time?
Yeah, I think the main focus for us were the interaction with the broadcasters, to provide them with social media content, which are kind of bridging the gap between the week and the actual match day. So really get the behind the scenes experience and be at the stadium. So giving them the opportunity to create a new experience for their audience. And therefore, Greenfly for us were the perfect tool that we can ease this process from capturing the content from our clubs, which is unique for a product as well in this field, and I think, and then distribute it to our media partners. So within 2 or 3 minutes, they have the on-site content, which they can then easily post on their social channels or integrate in linear programming. So this is a big benefit for us working with Greenfly.
Sure, absolutely. It's definitely, that becomes critical, that delivery mechanism. You know, Daniel, you work with obviously work with CFL, but a number of sports organizations, and just curious about what that relationship is like, especially during this time that can be a little high stress maybe for people. You know, what kind of feedback are you getting from these organizations when you work with them? Are they helping to try to improve your product? Tell us a little bit about the relationship.
One thing just to say, which has just been so amazing, is it's obviously been a very high stress period, but I mean, just, you wouldn't know it talking to people. People are so collaborative, so engaged, so creative during this period. So it's not, it's really been pretty remarkable to see the kind of resilience considering the pressures that people are under. Certainly product feedback is essential to us, and we really, the most valuable thing in any relationship is really seeing how people are using our platform and really talking to them about it, and understanding that for all the time we spent thinking about it, they're living it in a different way, and they're going to have a perspective that we could never bring just in the abstract, and it's incredibly valuable to really refining the platform. And I think of our development as really a kind of collaboration with our partners, and we spend a lot of time really talking to them, both to make sure that we're serving their needs, but also just to make sure that we're really learning about the industry and the needs that people have, and really figuring out how we can meet them in the best possible way.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. We have only about, I think, 5 or 6 minutes left here, and there's one question that I want to make sure I actually have all of you answer. As we entered into the pandemic, I think there was this idea of okay, we'll shut down for 2 weeks. Okay, maybe a month. Now it's 2. And ultimately, when you kind of look at this timeline here, we essentially are going to be in this for over a year. If you all had known that at the time, you knew that this was going to be kind of a year's worth of disruption, for lack of a better term here, what would you have done differently in your organization, or potentially your organization, or even kind of your partnerships with organizations? And so, Eric, I am going to go to you to start.
Yeah, it's a good question, and one we've thought a lot about recently. I think some of the things we've done recently that have worked really well, that could have gotten a kickstart earlier on, if we had a crystal ball. And JB mentioned it a bit, but really the value we're bringing to sports organizations in terms of how Slate can execute on sponsored content, we've seen really increase since the NBA bubble and these kind of returns where you don't have fans in the stadium, and the sponsorship on social becomes more important than ever. I think we would have leaned into that earlier, both with kind of examples of how it could be done and also product features. The other piece of it is our product roadmap is evolving to not just service live events, to help teams and leagues and brands create content on social media day to day. And I think, we would have leaned into that part earlier as well, in terms of how we are kind of beyond just the game day. But I guess really just an acceleration of the stuff that we've seen working kind of as we've settled into this new normal.
Yeah, absolutely. JB, how about you? What's something you would have done differently?
Yeah, I really like the question, actually. And just to jump on what Eric was saying, I think for us, and I think Daniel mentioned it a bit earlier, it's more of an acceleration than anything new. So if I was a bit presumptuous, I would answer nothing to your question. For us, it's the only thing that I hope I would have done better in 2018 or 2019 was to be just a bit quicker in terms of integrating. But since 2 years now, we're trying, actually, as the industry is shifting, you see new business model coming in, you have to leverage new assets. And as a sports organization, you need to be ready for it. And the only thing we've been doing is actually putting the full stack. So what we're doing now is working with Slate, with Greenfly. We've also worked with WSC or even LiveLike in terms of putting together the different pieces of an engine that can allow you to actually better leverage all the digital assets out there. So it's a big presumption, but I would say nothing. The only thing that I would hope I would have done better was just to be quicker in terms of adopting and putting all the right pieces together. But I think with this kind of technology, we are in a position today to actually face better the situation. After we have other situations to deal with, but when it comes to the shift of the industry, and you were mentioning at the beginning of your of the call in terms of how people consume now on digital and due to COVID, I mean, for us, it's just an acceleration. So clearly the changes will be there to remain. But it's how we equip ourselves to be ready for it. And I think with the guys like Daniel or Eric, I mean, we're on safe hands to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, a couple minutes left. Daniel, would love to hear from you on how you guys would have kind of changed, potentially shifted anything.
Yeah, I don't want to copy JB's answer and be presumptuous and say nothing, but I mean, the acceleration point is real. I think for us, one thing that we saw early on is people started to use our platform to engage with fans a lot more, which is not how we designed it or not what we had in mind. And so the question that we had is, should we really lean into that and refine it for a fan experience and make some changes that made sense for the fan experience? And we thought, well, maybe this is just a temporary disruption. Fans are not in the stands. There's a need for fans to work with fans and get content from fans differently and to fans differently. And then we decided, we should really lean into that because that's going to persist outside of this. Yes, it's really important right now, but engaging with fans on social is going to be important forever. And so I think we moved pretty quickly to lean into that and to refine that.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that engagement is going to continue to be crucial, and as we see kind of new players enter the space, it'll be interesting to kind of see all the different dynamics. And I guess we'll all be spending more time on digital platforms. Lennart, would love to hear as we kind of close out here. What is something that you guys maybe would have done differently, if anything?
Yeah, if we're talking about the restart stuff and all this, I think we did pretty well. But from a production point of view, I would definitely say we could have enhanced the collaboration between all the leagues and all the federations to see how we can tackle these issues like together, or even like to use some synergies. So really, I would rather focus on the collaboration, especially or for example with JB was very, very helpful, and with other leagues, and not talking about just about the hygiene concept, but more like on the production side and all about like social media and all the stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. We are at GSVS, we are big believers that collaboration is key. We are all stronger together. With that, I just want to thank all of you for your time here today. For anybody listening, I'll just go ahead and say all of us are on LinkedIn. We are all open collaborators. And so please feel free to connect with us if you have any questions about any of our organizations. And Josh, I will hand it back to you. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much, Fielding. Stronger together. very, very important words, of course, during this time, innovating and leveraging your brand in the new